So what features does the Google Pixel 9 make it a flagship, and what features make it a mid-range, and what makes it a budget device? This phone is all over the place, and at $800, you really need to see the specs on this device, and I'm going to tell you what I think about them. So overall, size is a big plus because I appreciate smaller Android phones. It's not 6.7 inches. That's the norm now, so I appreciate having an overall smaller size. Weight, not too bad. Build quality is very nice. It's on the flagship type of level. Glass front, glass back, aluminum frame, very nice. For the SIM card situation, you have a nano SIM card slot and an eSIM. That is not a flagship feature anymore. Lots of cheaper Motorola devices have them as well, like the Moto G 2024. So this is not a flagship type of feature anymore. Now for IP dust and water resistance, IP68, it only works 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. So this is not a flagship feature. This is found on budget and mid-range devices. Dunking a little bit of water and it'll mess up. It doesn't have any type of level like such as the iPhone, for example. Now the display, like I mentioned before, is on the smaller end, 6.3 inches, which I do appreciate. You don't find that on a lot of devices. But the display has 120 hertz. That is not a flagship feature anymore. There are cheaper devices such as the Moto Edge that has 144 hertz. So that feature is not worth $800. Resolution is kind of mediocre as well. 1080p display, nothing to write about. It's very average. This does have an always on display. That is kind of considered a flagship feature, but it has been found on previous Google Pixels in the past. So this is not really something that makes the Pixel 9 very special. For the software, you know that Pixels have a clean stock version of Android, and this one comes with Android 14, and it has 7 major Android updates. Now that is very good in general, but Samsung also has a lot of updates with its newer line of phones, and on the cheaper ones as well. So this feature is not really that flagship anymore because Samsung basically copied them and having lots of years of updates and vice versa. Chipset, this is going to be good news because the Google Tensor G4 is going to be flagship level, very new, very fast, straight from Google. So you're not going to have any slowdowns with this. This I do consider a flagship feature. Let's go on. For the storage, it's a very sad story. 128 gigs is not worth $800. Free devices, cheap devices have 128 gigs standard now. That is the bare minimum now for an Android phone because you can get them for free. And with no additional SD card slot support, this makes it a very poor choice if you're spending $800. On the flip side, with 12 gigs of RAM, that is a flagship feature right there. That is pretty much the reason why this phone is costing $100 extra than its predecessor, the Pixel 8. 12 gigs of RAM is going to be very, very good if you run lots of apps, and is not going to really slow down any of your performance because you can jump right back into the app. That is a flagship feature. That is the telltale sign if it's a flagship or not. If you want to just go straight to the RAM, you can kind of tell what kind of quality this phone is going to have. But at 12 gigs of RAM, that's appreciative. That's a base rate now for a Pixel, but the price did go up. I do consider that a flagship feature. Next, we have the camera. Google Pixels have always had great cameras, second to none. I think it even beats out Samsung's line of cameras, which are very good. And also, this is the only phone, Android phone, that could come close to an iPhone level of quality with pictures and with video. And I consider this a mid-range feature because Google has not really improved the camera system to the point where it's worth upgrading every year. So, but nonetheless, this is one of the standout features of why you would get a Pixel phone is the quality of the camera, the selfie camera as well, very, very top notch. There's no headphone jack on this. That's a negative just in general because, you know, they're found on budget devices still on 2024, and you could find very good use out of them. So that is a terrible takeaway from a $800 device. It's NFC standard feature, USB Type-C standard feature. The fingerprint reader that's in the display is a little bit of an upgrade. It has ultrasonic. Now it could be considered a flagship feature because it's better than the regular optical one that was found on last year's Google Pixel 8s. But it's not that much faster. So, you know, it's a little bit of an upgrade, but definitely not worth the $800. Now, battery life is a very disappointing story. Let me tell you why. Budget devices pretty much have 5,000 milliamp batteries. Why would you spend $800 and get a sub 5,000 milliamp battery? This phone, the Pixel 9, has 4,700 milliamps. That is a lot for a phone, more than enough of what you need, but for what you're paying, you should be getting a lot more battery life. You're also getting mediocre charging speeds, 27 watt wired charging. Yes, you'll charge your phone 50% in 30 minutes, but there are phones such as the Motorola and OnePlus phones that give you super fast 65 watt charging. So this is a mediocre feature for $800. That's a no-no. It also has 15 watt wireless and 12 watt wireless Qi charging, and reverse wireless. In general, I really don't care about those extra ones. I just care about how fast is the wired charging, and this one is mediocre. Definitely not worth the $800. So it's very hard to pick out the standout features of the Pixel 9 and why would you upgrade. But I'll tell you the few reasons why you would want to get the Pixel 9 if you want to spend those $800. So the first one is going to be the size of the device. 6.3 inches is the smallest flagship phone you'll find out there with stock Android. You're going to get 7 years of updates with stock Android. So that's a plus right there. You're getting a little bit of an upgraded fingerprint reader in ultrasonic. That's a little bit of a plus. You're getting 12 gigs of RAM instead of the base 8 gigs of RAM of other people. That's very important. I think that's one of the major reasons why you would want to upgrade from the previous models is you got 12 gigs of RAM. And other than that, it is just very, very hard to pick out, you know, something that's really makes this phone stand out. Yes, you got the Google Tensor G4. That's a reason to have this phone because it makes it very powerful. But it's a given that every year you're gonna get a better chipset. Yeah, and the camera's it's good. The camera's very, very good. It is the best, but it's not really an upgrade from previous model years. So yeah, that's pretty much it. All the other things are so average that it makes this phone, there's too many averages, too many mid-range features that it's not enough to cover making this phone flagship. This is definitely a mid-range device with certain perks that if you want that can't be found on any other devices. Stock version of Android, 7 years of updates, the smaller size, and just the awesome camera in general. Those are the only real things on this Pixel 9 that make it stand out. And I don't think it's enough to justify that $800 price point because you can get last year's or previous year's Google Pixels or Google Pixel Pro models. So yeah, $800 is not worth it for the very few features that are upgraded on this year's phone.